In a quiet town in California, a young mechanic meets a 19-year-old paralyzed girl whose wheelchair and hope are both falling apart. What begins as a simple repair soon turns into something far greater, a journey of courage, kindness, and second chances. Because sometimes it's not the wheels we need to fix, it's the heart that's forgotten how to move. Like, share, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Now let's get started. The soft morning breeze carried the scent of oil and metal through the small town of Monterey, California. At the corner of Harbor Street stood an old repair shop with a faded sign that read Ethan's Auto and Fix. Inside, the sound of tools echoed against the walls, while a young mechanic, Ethan Miller, wiped grease off his hands. He was only 25, but life had already taught him more about struggle than most. His parents' garage was all he had left after they passed away, and though money was tight, he worked with quiet determination every single day. Across the street, 19-year-old Lily Parker sat in her old wheelchair, the front wheels shaking with every small movement. The California sun hit her pale face as she tried to push forward, but the wheel jammed halfway up the curb. Sweat gathered on her forehead, frustration tightening her lips. People passed by, some glancing with sympathy, others pretending not to see. Her chair was her world, rusted, slow, and painfully unreliable. Still, she held her head high, trying not to let the tears win again. Ethan noticed her from the shop window. He had seen her before, always struggling up the same sidewalk, always refusing to ask for help. But today, something in her eyes, exhaustion, maybe pain, made him step outside. "Need a hand?" he asked gently, keeping his distance. Lily hesitated, pride fighting against practicality. After a moment, she nodded. He pushed the chair carefully, his strong arms steady and sure. "You shouldn't have to fight this hard just to move," he said softly. She smiled faintly. "It's okay. I'm used to fighting." When they reached the ramp, Ethan crouched beside her chair. He ran his fingers along the bent wheel frame, noticing cracks and loose bolts. "This thing's not safe," he murmured. Lily looked down, embarrassed. "It's old, and I can't afford a new one." He looked up at her, his blue eyes sincere. "Let me fix it. No charge." She shook her head instantly. "I can't let you do that." But he smiled, a kind smile that broke through her defenses. "You'd be doing me a favor. I like fixing broken things." That night, Ethan worked long after closing. He disassembled the wheelchair piece by piece, laying every part carefully on his workbench. Each scratch told a story of her struggle. The uneven tires, the worn-out handles, the squeaky axles. As he replaced bearings and polished the metal, he imagined how much strength it must take for her to live every day like that. He had fixed cars, bikes, even old farm tools, but never something that felt this personal. This wasn't just metal, it was her freedom. When Lily returned the next morning, she was surprised to see her chair gleaming like new. Ethan had added a few small modifications, lighter wheels, smoother joints, and a soft grip on the arms. She rolled forward carefully, and the movement was so smooth it made her gasp. "Ethan, it feels like magic," she said, laughing for the first time in months. He watched her circle the shop, her hair shining in the sunlight that spilled through the garage doors. That sound, her laughter, was worth more than any money. Over the next few days, Lily visited the shop often, sometimes with excuses like, "The left wheel feels loose," or "It's making a sound." But Ethan knew she came for more than repairs. They shared coffee, stories, and the kind of silence that feels comfortable. She told him how she used to run track before the accident that changed everything. A drunk driver, one rainy night, had taken away her ability to walk. Since then, she had lived with pain, therapy, and the quiet ache of dreams unfinished. Ethan listened without interrupting, just tightening bolts or adjusting a screw while she spoke. "You know," he said once, "my mom used to say broken things have the most beautiful stories." Lily smiled faintly. "Then I must have a library by now." He laughed. And for a moment, the weight of both their lives seemed lighter. They became friends, two souls bound by loss and quiet understanding. And though neither of them said it, something deeper was beginning to grow between them, something fragile but real. One rainy evening, the power in town went out. Ethan worked by flashlight, finishing up a few last touches on her chair. The rain poured outside, thunder shaking the roof, but he didn't stop. He remembered Lily's words. "I used to love running on the beach." That night an idea sparked in his mind, something beyond fixing a wheelchair. What if he could help her stand again? The thought was impossible, maybe even foolish, but he couldn't shake it. He wanted to see her take her first steps again. When morning came, the rain cleared and Lily arrived soaked from her short trip. Ethan was waiting, smiling through his exhaustion. "I've been thinking," he began slowly. "What if we make your chair better? Not just stronger, but something that gives you more movement, more balance." She stared at him, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "You mean like walk again?" He shrugged humbly. "Maybe not today, but maybe someday. And I'll be here until then." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she whispered, "No one's ever believed that before." That day, something shifted. The mechanic who once fixed cars now had a new mission, repairing more than steel and bolts. And the girl who had given up on hope began to believe again. The wheels turned smoothly beneath her hands as she rolled down the quiet street, the sun warming her face. For the first time in years, the world didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a beginning. Ethan's small garage began to change. What was once filled with rusty tools and car parts now looked like a workshop of dreams. Charts covered the walls, drawings of gears, leg braces, and balance supports. Every screw he tightened carried purpose. Every spark from the welding torch whispered one name, Lily. He didn't tell her everything he was building. He wanted it to be perfect. His friends called him crazy for spending nights on a project for a girl, but Ethan didn't care. This wasn't pity, it was belief, pure and stubborn belief. Lily's days started to feel brighter. Every morning, she'd roll into the shop, her coffee in one hand and a shy smile on her face. She loved watching Ethan work, his sleeves rolled up, his eyes focused, sweat tracing lines on his face. Sometimes she'd help hold parts or pass tools, feeling useful again after so long. Between laughter and silence, a quiet bond formed. She no longer felt like the girl in the wheelchair. Around Ethan, she was just Lily, a girl with dreams, not limitations. As weeks passed, Ethan's invention began to take shape. It wasn't just an upgraded wheelchair. It was something new, something that could help Lily train her legs again. Using lightweight steel, hydraulic supports, and modified motor sensors, he built a pair of wearable braces that could lift and support her weight. It wasn't easy. He failed dozens of times. The first prototype collapsed under pressure, the second overheated, and the third nearly electrocuted him. But each failure only fueled his determination. "I'll make it work," he whispered every night before sleeping on the shop floor. One chilly evening, Lily arrived to find the garage lights still on. Ethan stood there exhausted but smiling. "It's ready," he said quietly. On the workbench lay the final version, sleek, silver and delicate, like hope forged from metal. Lily's hands trembled as she touched it. "You made this for me?" she whispered. Ethan nodded. "You said you missed running. I can't promise miracles, but I can promise a start." She looked at him with tears forming in her eyes, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "Let's try it," she said, voice shaking with courage. It took Ethan nearly an hour to strap the braces onto her legs. Every click of a buckle echoed like a heartbeat. Lily's palms were sweaty, her breath quick and shallow. Ethan crouched beside her, voice gentle but steady. "I'll be right here. Just lean on me." She nodded, gripping his shoulders. With a trembling effort, she pressed her hands against the wheelchair arms and pushed. Her legs wobbled, the braces whirring softly, and then, slowly, unbelievably, she rose. For the first time in 2 years, she was standing. Tears rolled down both their faces. Lily stood for less than a minute before her knees gave out, and Ethan caught her in his arms. She laughed through her tears. "I stood up, Ethan. I actually stood." He nodded, his voice breaking. "You did more than stand, Lily. You proved you still can. The rain outside started to fall again, pattering softly on the roof, but neither of them noticed. That 1 minute felt like a lifetime. Proof that impossible things could happen in small, quiet garages when kindness met courage. In the following weeks, Ethan continued to refine the design. He added better sensors, balanced the weight, and created a simple handheld control. Lily came daily for practice. Each time she stood a little longer, moved a little steadier. The town soon heard whispers of the mechanic and the girl who walked again. Strangers stopped by just to peek inside, pretending to need oil changes, but staying to watch the miracle unfold. Ethan didn't seek attention. He only cared about Lily's progress. She was his reason now, not his project. Sometimes they'd take breaks outside, sitting on the curb as the sun set behind the hills. Lily would tell him about her old dreams, college, traveling, photography, and he'd listen quietly. "You know," she said one evening, "I used to think my story ended after the accident. But maybe it was just a new chapter starting." Ethan smiled. "Every broken story deserves a rewrite." She turned toward him, eyes soft with gratitude. "Then you're my favorite editor," she whispered, and something unspoken passed between them, a warmth stronger than words. But progress wasn't easy. One afternoon, during a training session, Lily slipped and fell hard. The metallic braces clanged against the floor, and pain shot up her legs. Ethan rushed to her side, panic in his eyes. "Are you okay?" he gasped. She bit her lip, trying not to cry. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I'll never walk like before." Ethan shook his head firmly. "Don't you dare say that! You've already come further than anyone thought possible." His voice cracked, raw with emotion. "You're stronger than you think, Lily. Don't give up now." That night, after she left, Ethan sat alone in the dark garage. His hands ached, his mind raced with doubts. What if he was giving her false hope? What if he was setting her up for heartbreak? He stared at the empty wheelchair beside him, the silence thick with fear. Then he remembered her laugh, her determination, the way she looked at the ocean in the distance, like she still belonged there. He stood up, clenched his jaw, and whispered to himself, "I'll finish this for her." For both of us, weeks turned into months, and the sound of tools in Ethan's workshop became a song of hope. Lily's strength grew day by day. She could now stand for longer, take 2 steps, then 5. Every inch of progress was a celebration, every failure a lesson. Ethan made constant adjustments, lighter motors, smoother hinges, more comfort in the joints. He watched her determination with awe. She refused to give up. Sometimes he wondered if he was helping her heal, or if she was the one healing him. Either way, they had become each other's reason to keep going. One cold morning, Lily entered the shop wrapped in a scarf, her cheeks flushed from the winter breeze. "I did it," she said breathlessly. Ethan looked up from his workbench, confused. "What?" She grinned, eyes sparkling. "I stood up at home. Alone." For a moment he just stared, then his face broke into a proud smile. He crossed the room and pulled her into a gentle hug, careful of her balance. "You're incredible," he whispered. She laughed, tears glistening. "No, Ethan, we are." And for the first time he let himself believe her. The local newspaper heard about the mechanic and the girl who walked again. Reporters showed up asking questions, taking photos, writing headlines like "Small Town Miracle." But Ethan didn't care about fame, and Lily didn't seek sympathy. They refused interviews and kept the journey private. What mattered most wasn't the attention, it was the quiet moments of progress. Like the way Lily smiled after each successful step, or how Ethan's hands trembled every time she let go of the chair and balanced on her own. These small victories were worth more than any headline. One evening, as the sky painted itself in shades of gold and pink, Ethan found Lily sitting quietly outside the shop. She looked toward the distant ocean. "I haven't been there since the accident," she said softly. "The beach?" he asked. She nodded. "I used to run there every morning before school. I thought I'd never see it again." Ethan looked at her and made a silent decision. "Then that's where we're going," he said. She turned to him, unsure. "It's too far," he smiled. Not for us. The plan was set. The ocean was waiting. The next morning, Ethan loaded her wheelchair and equipment into his old pickup truck. The road to the coast stretched long and winding, sunlight flickering through the trees. Lily sat beside him, nervous yet excited. The sound of waves grew louder as they approached the shore. When they arrived, the salty wind filled the air, and the scent of seaweed hit them like memory. Ethan parked near the sand and looked at her. "You ready?" he asked. Lily's eyes glistened with emotion. "I've been ready for 2 years," she whispered. The sand was soft beneath Ethan's boots as he carried her lightweight chair to the edge of the beach. He helped her fit into the braces one last time, tightening each strap with care. The ocean roared before them, endless and alive. "Hold my hands," he said. She nodded, gripping them tightly. Together they took one step, then another. The sound of her braces moving mixed with the rhythm of the waves. Each movement was shaky but real. The wind blew through her hair, and the world seemed to pause just for her. After several minutes, Lily stopped and looked down at her feet, touching the wet sand. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, "I'm standing on the beach again." Ethan's voice cracked with emotion. "You did it, Lily." She turned toward him, smiling through tears. "No, we did it." The golden light reflected in her eyes as she laughed, a sound pure and alive. For Ethan, it wasn't just joy. It was a miracle he helped build with his own hands. The mechanic who once fixed machines had helped someone fix her soul. They stayed until the sun dipped low into the horizon. The waves kissed the shore softly, wrapping the world in a quiet peace. Lily reached out, letting the ocean water touch her fingers. "You know," she said, "I thought I'd lost everything after the accident. But maybe losing everything made space for something better." Ethan looked at her, his heart full. "Hope?" he asked. She smiled. "You." Silence filled the air again, not empty but full of meaning. It was the kind of silence that heals, soft, endless, and unforgettable. As darkness settled, Ethan pushed her wheelchair back toward the truck, their footsteps fading into the night. The stars shimmered above, and Lily rested her head against his shoulder. "You didn't just fix my wheelchair, Ethan," she whispered. "You fixed me." He smiled quietly, his eyes glistening in the moonlight. "No, Lily, you just needed someone to remind you that you were never broken." The drive back was peaceful, both lost in the music of the night and the rhythm of a miracle they had created together. From that day on, Ethan's small garage became a place of hope. People came from nearby towns asking for help, not just for repairs, but for second chances. And every time someone thanked him, Ethan would smile and glance at the photo of Lily standing on the beach. Her laughter still echoed in his mind, reminding him of the truth he had learned. Sometimes the greatest repairs aren't made with tools, but with kindness, patience, and belief. Because he hadn't just fixed her wheels. He had repaired her hope.